Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. It is New Year's Eve day. Do want to get to just a fascinating story that kind of emerged over the course of the morning. Again, December 31st, as we head into 2025. College football playoff is about to kick off. Penn State, Boise this evening. And then obviously there's 3 games on Wednesday, one of them involving Texas and Arizona State. The story that I want to talk about now is the future of Quinn Ewers and where will he play college football next year? Because listen, Texas may lose on Wednesday. I don't think they will. I've picked them to win, but at some point this season is going to end. And what Quinn Ewers' future is has become one of the most interesting talking points in all of college football. Okay. I think we all thought coming into the season, I think a lot of us, frankly, were surprised last year when he decided to come back for another year of college football. But he comes back. When he does, we all assume this is his final season, that he's going to go pro, and that, of course, he's going to hand the reins to Arch Manning next season to prepare. As he goes pro, Arch Manning has been preparing, I should say, and Arch Manning would be your starting quarterback going into the 2025 season. Well, I don't think anything from the Arch Manning side of things has changed, but I solely bring it up to very simply say I think some stuff might be changing from the Quinn Ewers perspective. Because after weeks of speculation, there's kind of been unsubstantiated reports that Quinn Ewers has been offered this to go to this school, that to go to that school. We got ourselves an interesting and credible report on Tuesday morning as Pete Nakos from On3, he put out a report titled, quote, "Tampering is at an all-time high," end quote, to get Quinn Ewers into the transfer portal. And the report by Pete Nakos is that Quinn Ewers is commanding up to, or schools, I should say, are offering up to $6 million. I feel like Austin Powers, $6 million. I guess it's Dr. Evil, not Austin Powers, but you get the point. $6 million to get Quinn Ewers into the portal to their school. I'll say this. If it goes down, it's one of the craziest NIL stories we've ever seen. I think there's some credibility to it. I think there's a lot of credibility whenever On3 Pete Nakos put out a report, but I think there's credibility to the fact that he could come back to college football, and I think it could be a wild bidding war. So let's get into fact, fiction, etc. And then maybe most importantly, what are the schools that could actually pony up that dough to get Quinn Ewers to be their quarterback next season? So first of all, I believe this report for a few reasons, okay? I've said this. We've all said it. This isn't like some interesting take for me. I'd be stunned if Quinn Ewers is the quarterback at Texas next year. The bottom line is, listen, I give them the Manning family credit. I think they've done it kind of quote unquote the right way. I don't know if such a thing exists anymore, but they've waited their turn. They've been patient, redshirted as a freshman. Again, I think there was even speculation at this time last year when Quinn Ewers decided to return to college football for another season. Should Arch Manning enter the portal then a year ago and find a starting spot somewhere? He decides to come back for another year. And listen, I should even preface by saying Quinn Ewers has said, "I'm not transferring." Arch Manning has said, "I'm not transferring." But if Quinn Ewers does decide to come back to college football and does want to come back to Texas, I do think the Manning family has a real decision to make from the perspective of, do you now want to wait 3 full years on the sidelines before you see the field in year 4? Now you're talking about you're at a point where you're draft eligible and haven't even gotten significant playing time. And so when I say I don't think Quinn Ewers, if he comes back to college, is going to go to Texas, I think this could be that situation where Sark kind of just has to sit the Ewers family down and say, look, we are going with Arch. We've been patient. We wish you the best of luck, but we got to go in another direction. And we've seen this all over the place, right? We saw it, ironically, you know where we saw it last year? Was at Oklahoma. Dillon Gabriel's awesome. Dillon Gabriel wants to play another year of college football, but Brent Venables kind of had made the unofficial promise of like Jackson Arnold's going to be our guy in 2024. Now you can argue it was a mistake, but that did happen. And that is why Dillon Gabriel decided to go in another direction. And so I bring it up because I think Texas is going to be in the same spot. They're not going to let Arch Manning enter the portal. And I know the Manning family is saying all the right things right now, but if Ewers decides he wants to come back, and if Texas actually did take him back, which I don't think they will, then I think the Manning family has to sit down and say, are we sure we want to do this, or do we need to look for another school? So that's where it gets interesting. I don't believe that Ewers will be back at Texas for that reason. Now the question becomes, should he enter the portal if Texas is not a realistic option, or should he just go pro? Listen, if this was 3, 4, 5 years ago, the obvious answer is you go pro. You roll the dice. You hope you're doing okay. You hope you find the right spot. You hope everything works out in your favor. It ain't 3, 4, 5 years ago. This is the NIL era, baby. And there's real money to be made. And I think, especially for Quinn Ewers, whose draft stock has taken a hit, who hasn't been able to stay healthy, who is not looking like a first round pick at this point, I think it's almost a no brainer that you have to go and do another year of college. Not because it's what you want, but because it is the best money that you're going to get. Listen, we are now in a world where for the top college quarterbacks, you're going to be making more money in college than you are as a pro. Now, if you're Shedeur Sanders, if you're Cam Ward, if you're going in the top 5, the top 10, that's a different story. But I went back and looked it up before we did this segment. You know that Will Levis, who of course was the first pick of the second round 2 years ago, Will Levis is making about $2.5 million this year. Signed a 4-year, $9.5 million contract when he got drafted. So we are talking about Quinn Ewers potentially being able to make 3 times as much money if he decides to return to college football. And that, to me, is where it gets interesting. And that's where I think if this is a realistic option that's on the table, you got to go full speed ahead. You got to take it. To me, I have equated now the transfer portal at the end of players' careers. It feels to me an awful lot like kind of that free agent vet in the NBA or the NFL that has had their success, that has done whatever, won their rings or made all-star teams or Pro Bowls or whatever. And they know, like, I got a year or two left. I'm going to go take the biggest check that I can get because these paydays aren't guaranteed going forward. I think that's kind of where we are with the portal in college basketball and college football, is the idea that, like, at a certain point, it's like, yeah, I want to leave a legacy at Texas. I want to be a legend. We went to back-to-back college football playoffs, but this is life-changing money, and I can't turn it down if it is actually out there. So I believe the report. By the way, it's worth noting there was a report like 2 weeks ago that a alleged Big Ten school that remained nameless was willing to offer upwards of $4 million. So the point is, these reports have been out there. Now I think it's time to discuss, who do we actually think is the school that is offering $6 million? To me, I think it really boils down to 2, maybe 3 teams. The first team, it's obvious to me, is Miami. I think Miami is in a very precarious spot. And I think there's a few variables with Miami. First of all, one, we saw them in the bowl game without Cam Ward. I find it interesting. Cam Ward sits the second half. It comes out that was planned. Emory Williams gets some meaningful snaps. And I think we were all watching, sitting there saying, I don't know if Emory Williams is the starting quarterback of the Miami Hurricanes in 2025. Bottom line is, and I don't know if Mario Cristobal kind of let that kid play in the second half to kind of let the world know, hey, we are in the market for another quarterback. Maybe the player and his family kind of let them know, hey, you're not quite ready yet. But I don't think it was by accident that kid played. And I don't think it was by accident that he frankly didn't look very good. And I think Miami, I don't think you can go into 2025 with no disrespect to Emory Williams. I don't think you could go into 2025 with him as your quarterback. And I was thinking about Miami. There's a couple variables here that are important if we are talking about Quinn Ewers as a realistic option. One, I don't believe they have that quarterback on their roster for 2025. I just don't believe that guy is there right now. 2, the quarterback market of guys that are actually in the portal, it's few and far between. If you like John Mateer from Washington State, if you like Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, whoever was your guy, whoever you thought was the best guy available, Darian Mensah from Tulane, those guys have all committed. I mean, some of them are probably enrolling in the next few days as the winter semester, the spring semester starts on campuses across the country. So those guys aren't available. And I think for Miami, I know there's this negative vibe about how the season ended and they were a game away from going to the ACC championship game. And I think we learned that if they had gone to the ACC championship game at 11-1, they probably would have gotten in, win or lose. And so they're really a game away from the college football playoff. And I think you can sit there and say, oh, it was this colossal disappointment of a season for Miami. To a degree, I understand that argument. They enter November undefeated with a Heisman finalist, and all they had to do was not lose 2 games in November, and they're going to the college football playoff. So I think it's easy to sit there and say that this was just this colossal disappointment of a season. I think the alternative is true as well. Miami this season finished 10-3 overall. You know, they have one 10-win season in the last 20 years. They have one 10-win season in the last 20 years at Miami. So you could say this is a colossal disappointment. This ain't the 80s. This ain't the 90s. Warren Sapp and Ray Lewis and, whoever, Alonzo Highsmith and Ed Reed aren't there. And so this was a successful season. Disappointing, but still successful. And I think those Miami fans, that administration, I think they got a taste of what winning at a really high level looks like. Remember, the whole reason they went out and got Mario Cristobal, they fired Manny Diaz because the administration basically said, we're tired of being a national punching bag. So now, a game away from the college football playoff, you're just going to punt on the 2024 season, especially when you have a lot of talent coming back. I don't see it. I don't think the quarterback's on their roster, as I said a few times. And here's the other variable as well. Remember, Mario Cristobal, we could criticize him for the in-game stuff. He's a great recruiter. I don't believe that he is going to allow that program to go into 2025 with the quarterback situation the way that it is. And remember last year, they didn't make their move on Cam Ward until late. Think about it. Cam Ward was declared for the NFL draft. He was not coming back to college football. And Miami convinced him, and I looked it up before we did this segment. January 13th was the day that Cam Ward committed to Miami. January 13th was when they got their quarterback for 2024. So in my opinion, Mario Cristobal, I think he's got a plan up his sleeve. I would think Quinn Ewers has to be in that plan. Now, is it $6 million? I don't know. And I think the other thing, it is kind of worth noting. Like, again, we can say this was a colossal disappointment of a season for Miami. It wasn't. But also Cam Ward, like, Miami does have a little bit of a proof of concept. You come here, you're going to play in big games. Offense is going to be fun. Shannon Dawson's still there as the offensive coordinator. They just fired their defensive coordinator. You're going to be on a big stage, and we just turned Cam Ward from, who knows, second, third, fourth, fifth round pick to probably a top 5 pick. So there is kind of proof of concept. So I think Miami's the first team that immediately comes to mind. The second one that immediately comes to mind is Oregon. Oregon, of course, remember the report a few weeks ago was, there's a Big Ten team that's willing to offer upwards of $4 million to get Quinn Ewers. Clearly not Ohio State. They're good at the quarterback position with Julian Sayin. Clearly not, and Tavian St. Clair coming in as well. Clearly not Michigan. They're paying a bunch of money to Bryce Underwood. Clearly not Penn State. They got Drew Aller. I mean, I don't know who else it would be other than Oregon. I saw some speculation to be Michigan State. I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to Michigan State. So I think Oregon's definitely a possibility. I know this time last year, they, of course, got a commitment not only from Dylan Gabriel, but also from Dante Moore, a former 5-star. Listen, only Dan Lanning knows how good that kid is behind the scenes and in practice. But I'll also say this, Dan Lanning going into year 4 as a college head coach, all he is known is veteran, multi-year starting quarterbacks at that position, right? 2 years of Bo Nix, a year of Dylan Gabriel. I'm not saying Dante Moore is incapable. I'm just saying, like, is Dan Lanning. He's another one. That program is another one. They've gotten the taste of what it's like to be very much a national championship contender and in the conversation. We'll see what happens on Wednesday in the Rose Bowl. But he's just going to go in with an unproven quarterback next year. Doesn't feel realistic to me. I think Oregon's very much in play. Lastly, I'll give you a wild card. Did you see this story? So Colin Cowherd, buddy of mine, I've been on Colin's show a few times. I really like Colin. He's always been great to me. But Colin Cowherd over the weekend did a segment on his show, on his podcast, not the Herd on FS1, did a segment on his podcast he was talking about USC. And I forget how Notre Dame came up, but he said something about, next year's schedule is this, next year's schedule is that. By the way, Notre Dame. And then he kind of just dropped this random nugget. He goes, Notre Dame, yeah, they probably don't have their quarterback for 2025 yet. I'm pretty sure they're going to get a guy that's still playing in the playoff. Just said it like that. And I think there was a lot of speculation. Notre Dame, I think, even either put out a statement or one of the reporters kind of put out a statement basically saying, like, they are not recruiting a portal quarterback. I guess, if you want to say so, listen, the one thing I'll say about Colin, super plugged in the high-level agent world, media world. He has access to people that most of the rest of us don't, the type of people that would represent a potential NFL starting quarterback. And so I saw that report. You go through the quarterbacks that are left in the college football playoff. Okay, well, I don't think Sam Levitt at Arizona State, I don't think Maddox Madsen at Boise State qualify as a big name that everybody would know. And that was the quote that Cowherd used. You know, Ohio State's quarterback, Will Howard's out of eligibility. You know, I'm just trying to think of who's left. Dylan Gabriel's obviously out of eligibility. Drew Aller, I don't believe, is transferring to Notre Dame. And so you kind of go through the list. There's not very many names other than Quinn Ewers. So I'm not saying that I have that part sourced, but you kind of do the mental math. Cowherd's saying that he believes Notre Dame's quarterback is not on the roster yet, not even in the portal yet, and that it could very well be somebody that's still playing in the playoff. I don't know how many other names it could possibly be. So we'll see if Quinn Ewers actually hits the portal, but this is a crazy story. We had to do some quick reaction here on New Year's Eve. Appreciate everybody tuning in. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure to do so. We are going to fall under our goal of 50,000 subscribers before the new year, but that's okay. We'll get to 50K probably, frankly, sometime in January. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, make sure to do so. Also, just want to thank everybody. I said it on the last full show we did on Tuesday. Numbers for the show were insane. We finished 2024 well over 4 million views on YouTube. That was up like 40% from 40% from 2023. So I'm excited for a big 2025 ahead. Also worth noting, by the way, we will have a full show on Thursday reacting to the opening round of the college football playoff. Appreciate everybody's support. Happy New Year. Enjoy everything. Enjoy your friends. Enjoy your family. We'll be back 2025. See you soon.